what was it that caused one woman to be able to walk into a room and have presence, and seem to have this inner strength and peace, but it was coming out like that. She didn't have to say anything. And you were drawn to her, and why other women were invisible. And I've always been fascinated with what creates that, because I wanted to be that woman. I wanted to be seen and heard and inspire change and all of that. But internally, I'm shy. I'm a very, very strong introvert. And so I've always had this push-pull dynamic between really wanting to be seen and not wanting to be seen.
You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world. My guest today is Rachael Jayne Groover. She's the best-selling author of Powerful and Feminine and Divine Breadcrumbs. She's also the founder and CEO of the Awaken School, a program that helps world changers create their vision through cutting-edge educational experiences. The fundamental aims of all of her programs and presentations are to accelerate spiritual awakening, presence, lasting peace, and to raise global consciousness. She's the creator of the Art of Feminine Presence and the Art of Masculine Presence training, which has been taught worldwide by herself and more than 300 certified teachers. Welcome to the show, Rachael Jayne.
Thank you, Sandy. Great to be here.
That's a lot of accomplishments. I'm really impressed with all that you've accomplished and that you've trained people. I think that's the goal, is you don't do it all yourself, right?
Exactly. And sometimes things take you on a journey that you weren't expecting. I wasn't expecting to have a teacher training or a lot of people wanting to do it. In the beginning of building something, I was just wanting to have one client. That would have been nice, and thankfully it grew.
Yes, I know that. I know that feeling of, let me just get a client, please. And then, but the more you do and what you love and find your particular voice in that field, the more you attract in the right people, right?
Yes.
So let's begin. I want to hear your whole story and everything, but we always begin with, what does woman of value mean to you?
Yeah, I think every woman has value and is a woman of value. And then there is a difference between how free is she to express that, how free she is to own that and feel that for herself. And so when I was thinking into that, the whole topic that you hold here, Sandy, of women of value, I feel like it's a beingness question and also a doingness question. The doingness, a woman of value really knows what her gifts are and what is unique to her that she brings in a way that no one else really does. But also the beingness of just someone's presence is of huge value. And I know sometimes when I'm working with a client on their business or their career, it's like, well, what am I bringing of value? What am I really here to offer? And they often forget that just sitting next to you for an hour and being heard by you is a huge value. So it's both what she's being and what she's doing.
I love that. I think it does take a balance. And I love that you talk about the unique gifts that we all have. And so many of us have no idea what that is, which is why they hire people like us to help them. But it's amazing how growing up, most of us are praised for what we do rather than what we be.
Yes.
We're praised for the achievements, the good grades, the good behaviors, and not for the uniqueness of who we are and how we show up in the world.
Yeah. And I think my story kind of lends itself to why I got so involved in it early, because I was a singer, songwriter, performer. And so that is one of the fields that is praised for the uniqueness and the beingness and the presence and what are you bringing that's not just the doing. Even though I can very much also relate to, getting the good grades. I was pretty much a perfectionist growing up and a good girl and all of those things. And yeah, bringing those both together has been a journey. It's not been easy because of my story. We'll get into that, but always had that eye on both being and doing.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, let's get into your story. So I usually ask about that aha woman of value moment, but it's usually a series of moments. There's some
Yes.
pivotal time in your life where things started to move in a different direction. And, people may look at you today and think, oh, she's got it all together. She's got all these training programs and she's written all these books and she has these schools and she's the CEO of a
Right.
company. And oh my God, she's got it all together. But it
Right.
wasn't always this way. So share with us so our listeners can relate to your story.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think that the kernel of my interest and my fascination was with women and their presence, their magnetism. Like, what was it that caused one woman to be able to walk into a room and have presence, and seem to be have this inner strength and peace, but it was coming out like that. She didn't have to say anything, and you were drawn to her, and why other women were invisible. And I've always been fascinated with what creates that, because I wanted to be that woman. I wanted to be seen and heard and inspire change and all of that. But internally, I'm shy. I'm a very, very strong introvert. And so I've always had this push-pull dynamic between really wanting to be seen and not wanting to be seen, and really wanting to be in the, spotlight and magnetic, and like, no, 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 that's going to just bring up too many things for me and all of that. So it started there. And I was a singer full-time in Australia. That's where the accent is from, for, probably close to a decade. And I was doing that, touring around sometimes, or in Melbourne, Australia, where there was a lot of music going on. And I started learning and sort of figuring out what makes us a presenter or a performer that, Sandy, that one that just makes you kind of gasp or weep. It's not about their technical brilliance. It's just their presence, and I really wanted to be that. So I was working on that and got to a certain point. But I felt like in the entertainment industry, I was just entertaining people. And I really wanted to impact lives more. And so that's kind of where my question of value began. Like, I can sing. I can pretty much do anything you want with my voice, given I'd practiced for a decade. But is that the value that I want to bring? And it was a real big no in the end, just for me, because I was kind of sick of entertaining drunk men. Let's just put it out there, right? At the bars and the weddings. And, it was good for the time. So the value to me really began, this is like late 20s now, in the spiritual development field and the personal development field. I was sitting in Australia watching Oprah, who would get, broadcast to Australia 4 o'clock, I think, in the afternoon. And that was my first, we're talking about 1999, 2000. That was the first few years she had Gary Zukov and a Jan Levant Sant. I don't know if you watched Oprah back then, but
Sure.
Me sitting in Australia, like going, what is going on? I've never heard this kind of conversation, because it wasn't happening there. And so I really fell in love with the personal development realm and read all the books and started going deeper in my own spiritual journey, and then started having the dream of maybe moving to America, maybe doing more coaching or workshops. And I dabbled a little bit in it. And that was kind of where I was feeling like my value might be, that I could present, or I could coach, or I could use my skills of being on a stage, but bring more value to people. So I moved to America thinking everything would change, all my problems would disappear. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. You think that if you just move, everything will change. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I moved and not much changed. I moved for a few different reasons. It was definitely a divine breadcrumb. It was a pull. I felt like my man was there, and I was having a really hard time in love relationships at the time. I was like, he's got to be American. He can't, he's not here. All these men are just either macho or snags, which I call sensitive new age guys. And I just was not having a good time. So I moved, and then in the move thought, I'm going to bring value in this way for my own business. I'll start a little coaching business. I'll do something like that. Ended up working volunteer for a while for a person who was in the spiritual and personal development industry. So I was learning, but I was like, I'm going to do my coaching career. And all of these American coaches were telling me at the time, just do what you love and the money will follow. Just do what you love and the money will follow. And I don't know if anyone else has figured this out, but that is not true. There is a lot more involved than just doing what you loved. And that really led me to my aha around value, which was I had moved, I'd felt like I knew what I wanted to do. But in business or a career that you're trying to start, you have to get people's attention. Like there's no way around getting people's attention. And that put me up against my biggest fear or trauma of my life, which was it's not safe to be seen, especially as a woman and especially as an Australian. We have what we call the tall poppy syndrome there, which is don't get too tall. Don't be better than anyone else. Otherwise, they'll cut you down to size. It's very British. It's very kind of sarcasm, that kind of thing. So, I always laugh. I felt like I was going to heal by moving to America because everyone here is like big and bold and, self-promoting. And that's just not okay growing up in Australia. So here I am in America and everyone's saying, just put yourself out there and do videos and do this. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not safe. People will judge me. I mean, it was a really hard thing to be up against. And so all my work now, long story short, is about helping women to reconcile the fear of truly being seen, because there's a lot involved in that. People get self-conscious or they get performer conscious. Like, here I am, I'm doing the thing. Or, I feel fearful, or I feel anxious, or I feel nervous, or something like that. So in that aha and seeing the people who were getting people's attention versus not, I realized there was a group of people who were doing personal development, or they were speaking or making a difference, and there was thousands who weren't making any money at it. And this first group had a lot of presence. They had a lot of presence, that magnetism. And these group that were invisible didn't. So I made it a point to work out what the difference was. I became my first guinea pig. I put practices together that I would trial out at networking groups or on dates or whatever I was doing, and quickly saw that people responded to me extremely differently when I would be in these practices versus when I was not. And that's how Art of Feminine Presence and now Art of Masculine Presence, because the guys were like, teach me, teach me, teach me. But it's mostly been women. And why it grew so fast, because I think, I don't know if you can relate to this, Sandy, of this push-pull energy between really wanting to be out there and seen and successful, or sharing what you need and what you want and what you deserve, and kind of it's just easier to keep quiet, or it's just easier to not have to deal with, being in the spotlight.
Oh my God, I can relate to your entire story, even though I'm not Australian, I'm not a singer, but I'm an artist who worked as an artist my entire life. And when I was married to my husband, he was an entertainer, and I supported him. I wrote with him. He's a comedian. And so I was very immersed in the entertainment world. We had a show on Nickelodeon. I mean, we were doing really fun things, and my artwork was my whole life. That was what I was known as. But talk about introversion, afraid to be seen, but I also had a very strong need to be heard. So it is that push-pull, because what I realized was it wasn't that I was shy, it was I was afraid of being judged.
Yes.
And that fear of being judged, like you said, is what keeps so many people in a little box, playing it safe, whether it's business or dating or any other part of their life. And I'm also a dating coach, so that's really what I do most of my life. And it's I see people who hide behind fear of being judged for their weight, for their age, for their accomplishments, for the amount of money they have. And we hold ourselves back because everybody has fears, and we don't get anywhere unless we work through these fears. And we feel the fear and we do it anyway. And all these coaches who tell you do what you love and the money will follow. I mean, yeah, it's not magic.
True.
Yeah.
It's not, it's part of it. It's part of it. But I mean, I thought that was the way, and I was making $300 a month for 2 years living in this country, going through every part of my savings in a shared accommodation with way too many people. And I was used to living on my own. And I mean, I had that kind of, not a horrific immigrant story, but that immigrant story of like, what? I can't just follow my passion. There's got to be value. It's got to be, described. I hated sales. How am I going to sell anyone on what I'm going to, I mean, all of that was so difficult in the beginning.
Yeah, totally. Same. I mean, it's, you have to be seen. That's why I started my first podcast 10 years ago, because I had to get known.
Yes.
Scared the hell out of me,
Yes.
just putting myself out there and feeling like I am exposing myself. And so then comes video, then comes public speaking, then comes TED Talk, then, and it's, unless you put yourself out there, nobody knows what you have to share with the world. And it's such a gift to give to the world, your unique gifts. And it's actually unkind to keep that from people. It's like we walk around with this little shell because we've been told things like what you heard, which is humble yourself. Don't be too big. Don't get too tall. Don't be too full of yourself. So you went through some coaching yourself. You got inspired by Oprah and the people that she had on her show. And then you worked with some coaches, right?
Not really. I had some great mentors early on that came from different forms. So I was learning a Korean form of yoga, and I was really understanding through that how out of my body I was, very in what I call the head bubble. Most people speak from the head bubble. They're up in there. Hello, everyone. It's Rachael Jayne Groover here. And this is my rote speech. And, whatever they're doing, or they're just thinking too much. And I wasn't very present in the core of my body, of hara, lower dantian, womb space, as I call it in Art of Feminine Presence. So I was just going to classes, and then ended up befriending a really great master in that work who would just kind of give me nudges every now and then. And then I had another teacher, Tej Steiner, who was a master in group dynamics and group facilitation. And I sat in circle with him, learning how to process with people in circle. And I worked with Neil Donald Walsh for many years as his director of education, who wrote the Conversations with God Foundation. And I was just sitting in the back of the room. So in those early days, coaching was very new. And so I didn't kind of know who to go to. Later in my life, I decided I wanted to get coaching on specific things that I wasn't very good at, like business coaching, or got some speaker coaching, YouTube coaching, all sort of the things that I know that I need to get better at. And I'm a huge, huge believer in, whether it's a natural talent or not, to seek those out. But I kind of started the Art of Feminine Presence from really testing, because I'm a triple Taurus. I'm very practical. I'm like, if what I'm learning doesn't have a practical application, I'm kind of bored, or it's like, show me. I think I was around a lot of teachers early on in the spiritual world that had a very strong message, but I knew them and they weren't the message. They were very much not the message. And I really wanted to be the message. in my presence more than have a big following or what have you. So it was that testing. And then I got 5 women to join me in my first class for Art of Feminine Presence. And that was just in my living room, because you got to start somewhere. And I would teach them a practice, show them. And then that week they would do that if they were, networking, dating, having a conversation with their significant other, whatever it was. And they would come back and we would all report what happened. And we were just all finding that it completely changed everything. And then we'd do another one, and then we'd do another one. And then I would tweak. If they were like, oh, this is hard, or I don't really get it, I'd tweak the practice. And then we ended up with 44 practices, which we now call the Art of Feminine Presence. And so it really was that trial and error. And I think I've always had a fascination too with what I call the 3 stools of transformation. The awakening of the mind, really to be in a place of inner peace in the mind, which I did not experience early on. I went through all the comparing and the critical and the judgment and the not enoughness and all of that. And through this work, I've had some very profound spiritual experiences and opportunities for that mind to really disappear. That's probably been my biggest gratitude in my life, of my spiritual awakening journey, for that to quieten. And that's really, the spiritual and the receptivity and the awakening of the mind. And then the second stool was the somatic experience. It's not just unwinding who you believe you are, it's unwinding the body so it doesn't continue to contract on anxiety, or control, or stay small. And so I did a lot of somatic experience release work, that kind of thing. And the third being psychology. So spirituality, somatics, and psychology. And the psychology is, what is your personality type? I love the Enneagram, so I use a lot of Enneagram for myself, of learning how does my particular personality type work? Because sometimes when we're on this path of transformation, some coach may say, oh, just do this, you need to believe this. But actually, for that personality type, that's the wrong thing. That's their fixation. Don't go there. So I never coach anyone the same or mentor anyone the same, or if they get up at a microphone at an event, no one's the same. But learning patterns in the body and the mind and the personality has helped me to master myself and help other people along the journey, versus just do this, just do that, just do this, everything will be fine. Like, no, it's a pretty complex thing if you really want to awaken to your potential and to a very, very quiet inner peace that never leaves. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I love so many things about what you just shared. I especially want to talk about the last piece, which is that nobody can be told what to do, because it really has to be an inner decision. And it's based on trusting yourself, given the right tools. And so what you're providing is the ability to get quiet with yourself, to really feel into your body, which most of us are completely disconnected from.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what we're feeling, what we're needing, and we don't know ourselves. And I also really love that you walk your talk. I find that when I got into this work, there were so few people who really represented what they were talking about, what they were like the guru, where do as I say, not as I do kind of thing.
Right.
And it takes a lot to really say, well, I wouldn't teach anything that I'm not actually doing myself, and that I want to be consistent with my message. So I love that. And I think that just awakening to the realization that we are so much more than we think and feel, and that once we get that clarity, life just changes in such a beautiful way. If you have ever played small to make other people feel comfortable, or maybe stayed in a bad relationship or job too long because you didn't think you could do any better, I wrote a book for you. It's called Becoming a Woman of Value: How to Thrive in Life and Love. Each of the 30 chapters contains a life lesson, a story, and an exercise to bring you closer to reaching your full potential. Becoming a Woman of Value is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Give us an example of maybe a personal transformation or a transformation of someone you've worked with so we can kind of see how this works.
Yeah, gosh, there's many. So let me see who pops into my mind as divine perfection to share. So who's coming to mind is a lady named Jennifer, and she started with us in our business program. So for those of you that don't know the Awaken School, you can go to theawakenschool.com. That we have basically a lot of programs that hit these different aspects of what you need to master in order to be a woman of value, in your words, and really share your gifts here. And so she came through the business strategy door and did our Awaken Business School because she had just quit her corporate job. She was in her late 40s, early 50s, something like that. So pretty, I would call that young. And she wanted to do a business, but knew that she needed help, kind of thing, because it was the beginning. And she's a bit of a go-getter, actually quite a bit of a go-getter. So she came in that door and learned, and we showed her how to do it from a sustainable and profitable and enjoyable and spiritual, not letting go of all the inner peace, because a lot of people do when they're trying to build a business and get everything moving. But and she did great. She did great. She hit multi-six figures in her first year. She's on her way to seven figures. Like, that's great. But that's not why she's come up in my mind. So from there, she did our Art of Feminine Presence, which a lot of the women do in our community. It's just a 3-day intensive. These days we're doing it home edition, so it's easy for anyone to kind of put their toe in. And that's when she kind of relaxed that whole fear of being seen, because she was like the integrator. She was more the manager in the business. And she's like, someone else will sell, someone else will speak, or, I'm the one behind the computer. And through this work, she realized that her gift is being the one to create the relationships, so she was able to really put herself in a position of much more fulfillment than what she'd always done in her corporate career. But it wouldn't have happened if she was like, no, I'm the one who hides. I'm the one who supports everyone else. And then she did we've got a series of retreats, some of them silent retreats, some of them spiritual receptivity retreats. And going from the sort of relaxing the body and being in the body and feeling your own magnetism and your own glow with the Art of Feminine Presence, other things started to drop away, just other holdings, if this person triggers me or that thing triggers me, or, everyone knows, I'm sure, listening, what I mean by all of that. And she called me just a few months ago and she said, I just went to visit my mom. And she had a very, it's not her mom. I know her mom. Her mom is a wonderful woman, but Jennifer had a very traumatic childhood, abuse from other family members, stories I wouldn't want anyone else to go through, kind of thing. And so every time she would go to anyone in the family, particularly her mum, because of what that represented to her, it was like going back into being a little child. Does anyone know what that feels like? You go back home and all of a sudden you become a different person. So she called me and she said, I was with my mum for 4 days straight and was not triggered once, and have fallen in love with her and my childhood in some way and we weren't even working on releasing childhood trauma. We were working on releasing the psyche, the body that holds these things, and being more receptive. So she's just one that's had and she got married in the meantime because she was not connected to her feminine energy, started dating an Australian who's awesome, and was actually on a trip to Hawaii with us when we were doing our writing retreat, and said, we're engaged. So there's just been so many beautiful things.
What a great story.
Yeah.
So much happens when you can let go. It's I have clients who were holding on to some standard, especially in dating, of like he has to be this and he has to be that. And then it's like, and then the judgment starts as soon as a person walks in the room.
Right. I did
And
that with my husband. I knew him for 3 years before we went on a date because of our judgments.
So how did you work through that?
Well, gosh, I'd love to say I had a practice to work through that, but I was terrible. I was terrible. I had so many judgments about him. We were in Data Groover is my husband, who is an amazing award-winning author now and speaker training. But we started together in business, and he didn't know what he was doing either. So we went through the whole bankruptcy early on and just really hard times. Just again to remind anyone, if you think it's always been easy, it hasn't. But yeah, we met at Toastmasters because I was really scared of speaking. I was fine with singing at the time, but really scared of speaking. And he loves speaking. He's more of a, yeah, hello, and like very easy social person. And he would come in with a hat that I thought didn't go with his outfit, and a t-shirt that was too short for him. And then when I talk to him, I just kind of go into these judgments of what his life must be like. Because something at Toastmasters, or if you go into a networking group, you don't know these people really. You just know their personality. And I just didn't, I thought he was too hippie. I thought it was, and all these things ended up being completely false. He's not at all hippie. But there was just a couple of things he said that made me think, oh, he must be like this. And he had judgments about me too, even though he now says I was attracted, but the judgments would stop at each time. She's going to go back to Australia probably, or I worked for someone he didn't like at the time, and he was like, she must be a groupie, and all these things. Anyhow, it wasn't until we started playing music together. He's a bass player and I'm a singer and guitar player. And when we started playing music, and I think this goes to your whole thing about letting go. When you play music with someone, you've got to let go. You've got to trust. You've got to be in the moment. And so we just were. And pretty soon after that, we saw each other's soul. I mean, we saw really who we were. And that led to one thing after another pretty quickly. So anyone who is judging them for, gosh, something they said, and this must mean this, or something they're wearing, or this must mean this, and be careful of that, because it wasn't love at first sight for us, but we've been now married or together about we just had our 13th. I don't know. He's more romantic than me. But around 13, 14 years we've been together now, and we're happier, more in love, passion alive, polarity alive. And we didn't know for 3 years of literally being in front of each other's eyes every week on a Tuesday night.
That's really a great story. Well, you wouldn't be surprised to know that I'm also a Toastmaster.
Oh, are you?
I
Oh,
am.
that's
I was
great.
petrified of public speaking, and
Yeah.
I landed a TED Talk without any speaking experience.
Oh
And
my goodness.
yeah, so I leaped before I looked, and I was like, well, I have a message. It's an important message, but I'm scared to
Yeah.
say it. So I hired a speech coach and I joined Toastmasters, and
Yes.
it's such a wonderful group.
Yes.
Networking, getting out of your comfort zone, but also
Totally.
meeting people who are like-minded. And,
Totally.
everybody's into personal growth. People come from all walks of life, from mostly
Yes.
other countries who are not speaking, in native English speakers. It's amazing what
Yes.
they have to overcome. It just makes it so inspiring to be there.
Yes.
But I love that you had to overcome a lot of assumptions, both of you. And it's
Yes.
so true for so many people. We walk around judging everyone. It's just amazing. I have a Facebook group of women who are in the dating world, and they are over 40. And most of the posts are about assumptions. And I have very strict
Yes.
guidelines in the group. They're not allowed to complain and judge and criticize. And I mean, they have to really be focused on personal growth and the
Yes.
comments as well. But they will say things like, he said this, what do you think it means? And it's like,
Right.
we don't know.
One of
And
a hundred things at
right,
least.
exactly. And that person's been married twice. I would never date him, because he probably this, that, and the other, right?
Yeah, it's
And
all
so, yeah,
assumptions.
when we can break through assumptions in every aspect of life and also the clarity piece. So, one thing that really helped me, and I'm curious about your own experience in my work, is the clarity of knowing who I can and cannot work with and knowing how to vet people better, how to waste less time on people who are not a good fit, but how to be really clear, not only with the first time we speak, but in my messaging, in my contracts, in every aspect, so that I'm not left feeling resentful and depleted and all the other things that we can feel if we're not clear. So I'm curious how that shows
Yes.
up for you.
Yes. And do you mean sort of in work situation or back
Yeah.
in the dating
Well,
situation?
both.
Both.
They're very
Yeah.
interconnected, but I think with work in particular, when I used
Yeah.
to have clients who, first of all, I felt it was rude to end a session. I was just like, well, oh, it's been an hour. It's supposed to be a 45-minute session, but they're in the middle of something, so I can't interrupt them. And I had no
Right.
boundaries. I had no clarity. And
Right.
that's part of the process for me has been, who's my ideal client? How much money do I want to make? What's my message? How do I want to present it?
Yes.
What's my contract look like? How
Yes.
do I enforce it? All of those things.
Yes. Well, I mean, all of those words go directly to, personal boundaries and how good or not good we are at that in the beginning. And I can relate to you at the beginning. They weren't good. I would definitely go over, way over, in this want to not only not interrupt them, but make sure they knew my value, and I'm not, I really care. And I would kind of do more to try to make them feel that I really cared. When I did care, it was not, something that was not happening. And so as we've gone along, I've had to do a lot of inner work around boundaries because boundaries and the clarity of who you're going to work with, whether that's a team. Now we have, 11 full timers on our team, plus contractors and people around us. Um, I've got to be very, very clear. And so, what we have done, and feel free to jump in anytime, Sandy, if I'm not answering the question, I'll give you some more specifics. But what we found in our business was to give people some experiences where we could see them interact before we took them on as more in-depth clients. So we have the art of feminine presence is a great example for anyone who's kind of, tweaking with our conversation here, that the home edition 3-day event, and probably at this point when you hear it, we'll be doing it back in person as well. It's an inexpensive way for people to get some really powerful practices, have a huge breakthrough. But then I'm there facilitating with all of these beautiful women. And I'm very good at sensing energy now of whether someone is going to be a negative Nelly or, complainer or what have you, versus someone that's really open to this. At the same time, I don't assume, because I know that everyone has a different personality type, and some people just challenge. That's their personality type. They'll come out and they'll challenge me again, and they'll get up at the mic and challenge me again. That doesn't mean they're not ready for this coaching, or I'm not. I know the psyche and energy pattern that's going on there enough to go, I'm not going to assume and judge. This is what they're up against, is they always have to challenge, and they can be some of the best clients. So that gives me some time to feel it out. And if we're hiring someone, the same thing. I do a screening interview, which is a 15-minute interview, they have to have done a few tasks and things first to make sure they follow instructions. But that's really just for me to go, is there a jive here? Is there a, oh no? Because you can get a lot from someone. I mean, the other side of dating or hiring or looking for clients is there are sometimes you look at them and 1 minute later, you know, it's not the right
It's true. Yeah.
So
People can look good on paper and be very different in person.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm often looking for an energetic fit first, and getting out of my old habits of a visual fit. My husband wasn't really the visual fit, even though he's a handsome guy. He wasn't what I thought a societal fit, because I thought he was a hippie. And I'm kind of, he always jokes that I was more of a hippie than him, but I kind of, put together kind of woman. I like my luxury, and I like my, I'm not the type to go camping with Birkenstocks if you don't know who I am yet. But when I got clear on the energetic fit of what I was looking for in a partner, and then team, and then client, for example, with the man, I wanted someone goofy. I want someone to make me laugh. I like when I really sat with, who do I want in my house? Not who do I want to turn me on a date? Who do I want in my house for 50 years? Right? Because I was young. It was someone goofy and funny and playful and tickle me and that kind of thing. And that wasn't who I was looking for. I was looking for the Tom Selleck, brooding, sexy, dark, handsome, tall guy. And I got this goofy guy who is bold and handsome, who makes me laugh almost every hour. And it's so great. So the same thing with team. I'll look for, are they going to jive with the team? I ask, how would I and the team feel if we went away on retreat for a week with this person? Would we all just love to be hanging out, or can't see it? And the same with clients. Can I feel the energetic fit, and not the visual, not the race, not the age, not the sex, not the anything, just there's kind of a, like they're from our planet kind of feel,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for that answer. Let's jump to the future. What is on tap for you, your company? What's your vision?
Well, we're at a very exciting time right now in our company's future, because we have just purchased an old historic church in the downtown Loveland area where we live, to renovate it for our own retreat space. And so we've been, flying around. Before COVID, we were 50% on the road. After we did home editions, but we'd still go to Marriott's and put these events on, because usually there's more than 30 or 40 people. And some of our events, there's 300 people. So we've got to find a place to go. And you will appreciate this as an artist, Sandy. A Marriott ballroom isn't so beautiful.
No.
You can do some things to it, but it's not got the ambience that we have always set from our work, which is, reflection, inspiration, deep work, if people are willing to do it, silence sometimes, fun, performance. We usually bring out a full band to our workshops. So we want to put on an experience, and we've never been able to find a place that we could have to match the power of our workshops. And so we're in the process of the renovation, and I am a closet interior designer artist myself. And so I'm just having so much fun creating something beautiful for our community that just can take it to a whole nother level. And we've built a very strong community. We've had 35,000 people go through something of the Awaken School. That there's a core community going through things right now of a few hundred people, and to be able to hang out in our new garden area and patio and the lounge, and not have to go past the drunk people in the next room at the wedding and the Marriott, it's just dreamy to me. So that's huge. And I think it really relates also to the work that we're moving into in the future. My spiritual journey has been very profound. And so to have a space like this where we can go deeper and not be interrupted, everything's going more into that. This is where I didn't get my value early on, to be really honest. Yes, I can now speak, and yes, I can teach, and yes, I can. I have some seeing gifts that people don't, but I didn't really claim the idea of spiritual teacher until the last few years. And there's a way that I have of being able to explain the interior of what's going on when people still get trapped on their spiritual experience. So they might do a lot of workshops, they might do a lot of trainings, but their comparing mind's still going, their critical mind's still going, they know it's still going. And how to pull that apart versus have just someone go, just meditate, or just blah, blah, or just breathe. It's, yes, it's that. But when you get to where many of our community have got to, it's more nuanced than that. So we're doing a lot more over the next few years in that realm of really having people understand that where we are now in our evolutionary cycle, people awakening to the level of what Eckhart Tolle's talking about, or whoever you follow, Thich Nhat Hanh or Prabhupada or whatever you are from, that's so close to so many people now. And I think a lot of people still look at, no, I've got to go over to India. I got to be a yogi for 10 years before I'm even going to get close. That's not my experience anymore. Even though when I had my more profound experiences that had things go silent and kind of drop, I had done a lot of work before. I'm not saying that I hadn't. But the future for me is really letting people know it doesn't have to be as long or as hard or as mystical, mysterious, kind of demystifying enlightenment, and that word and what that really means is going to be a big part of my future and what I want to bring to our community.
That's wonderful. I love the retreat space. That sounds so exciting.
Yes.
And moving into really refining your gifts, which it sounds like you're finding more and more that you do things in this way that other people don't do. And
right.
It's a really beautiful thing. I just see so many people go through years and years of therapy and programs, and I just need to take one more course, or they'll study with a coach and it'll be thousands and thousands of dollars, and they come out without any real understanding. And it's such a shame that there's a lot of distrust because of that. And I think when you find the right guide, then you really do transform pretty quickly. And it's stuff that lasts, it sticks. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't
and
have
I think
to be
a lot
so
of
hard.
times, the problem when people choose their own coach, like you said, they go to another thing or another, they're hugging what they're already knowing or learning. They're hugging what they're already good at, and they're not going toward what they're not good at. For example, you might go to another mindset coach. I need some more mindset. I need some more mindset. If I just change my belief about this, and it's all mindset, there's no embodiment work. There's no relaxing of the gut that keeps holding on energetically to your life, which is what creates patterns. So I always try to get people to run toward the tiger's mouth, the part that you're not good at. Like in business, some of them are, oh, I know what I'm here to do, and I have presence, and I can be still. And I go, yeah, but can you get up on stage like Sandy did and do a speech and to the whole world? Or do you freak out? Oh, I'm never going to do that. No. Well, run toward that. So whoever's listening, just really be mindful of going back to the same kind of answer to try to get it answered when you've already gone there. It's the answer is in a different place.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, let's go into the lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
All right. Fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Pretty enough.
We didn't even talk about that part of your life.
And I think it's part of the singer, I was overweight. I was way heavier than I was now and not pretty.
It's so funny that today Lizzo and all these singers who are very overweight are making a huge name for themselves and just kind
Yeah.
of owning
Broken
it.
out of that pattern.
Yeah, we really have to work on the whole societal
Mm-hmm.
body loathing space.
Mm-hmm.
What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Realizing no one was going to give me permission and I had to take up the mantle. If I was going to take a position anywhere, it's my choice. And that freaked me out.
Yeah, it's my choice. It's so true. What is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
Learn how to stay in the internal space of your body, no matter what is coming at you.
Stay in your body. I see so much anxiety, especially today. There's so much of living in the past, living in the future. And if you just
And
stay
again,
present,
and they're trying to have the mind figure that problem out, and it's in the body.
it's in the body. What advice would you give to your younger self?
It's all going to work out better than you could have imagined. And yes, he's handsome and will make you laugh.
That's
Had
great.
too many years freaking out about would he ever come and too many wasted years.
Yeah, well, like you said before, we have this vision of our type. He has to
Yeah,
look like this and it has
yeah,
to feel like this.
crazy.
But the feeling part was missing because what you really wanted to feel was light and fun and
Friendship.
joyous. Yeah, friendship. And he balances you. You mentioned polarity, which we didn't go into
Yeah,
before, but that polarity is so important.
yeah.
And
He's
you
very
talked about,
masculine.
what is something people get wrong about you?
Well, now I think it's less because I'm very an open book. But early on, they got wrong thinking that I thought I was really confident, and I wasn't. They thought I looked confident, and but I wasn't.
Hmm. So you gave the impression of confidence.
Yeah. Now I give the impression of confidence, and I am very confident. But before, it was just, and I don't even think I was acting. I just kind of had that. Maybe it was because I was learning presence and speaking. I mean, singing at the time, but definitely wasn't feeling it.
Hmm. And finally, Rachael Jayne, how would you like to be remembered?
I love the quote, and I'm probably going to botch it, but the quote of a leader is not about how many followers you have, but how many leaders you created.
Mm.
I want to be known for that, that within our community of the Awakened School, out came hundreds and thousands of inspirational leaders in their ways they touch, and that they were awakened.
Yes, this is really such a great way to end this beautiful
Mm.
conversation, Rachael Jayne. If you can please share with us like one of the best ways to find you, and we'll put all the links in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. Well, the Awakened School is everywhere. You can look that up. But there is a free mini retreat that anyone can do online with me. Just do it at your own pace. Just a easy one to follow. And that's at unwaveringstillness.com if you want a first little step in this work we've been talking about today.
Well, thank you for that offer, and thank you for this conversation, and thank you for all the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I loved our conversation. Love what you're up to and your soul, and best wishes as you move forward too, and to everyone listening.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. And if you love our show, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps our show continue to grow and reach more people. And as always, have a wonderful day and be a woman of value. If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.